Hi there, I'm Anna with VSAC, and I'm here with Mike Newell, who's going to tell us a little bit more about his work. So, Mike, I'll have you start by, can you tell us your job title and where you work?
Sure, no problem, Anna. My job title is Associate Director of Audience Products, and I work for a company called Xandr.
Awesome. Can you
Uh,
tell us a bit more about what your work entails?
exactly, no problem. Basically, what I work in is known as sort of advertising technology. I build audience targeting solutions for advertisers who are looking to connect brands with people based on the behaviors that they have displayed. So I work for Xandr. Xandr is a company that's owned by AT&T. About 4 years ago, AT&T started going on a buying spree of different companies. Like they bought DirecTV, if you guys were ever a DirecTV subscriber beforehand, and now you're owned by AT&T. Warner Brothers, they bought, right, a few years back as well. And what they needed to do was AT&T, what they wanted to do is now that they have DirecTV, so they understand what their users watch on television, they understand the websites that their users on the AT&T network visit, like on their phones and things like that. We also have data that's based upon where you go to, that sort of thing. So we know if you're went to, for example, your McDonald's, that sort of thing. Now, it's not something that we just check on every day, with there, but we have these sort of ability to understand what you watch, what you view on websites, and where you go. So what AT&T wanted to do is be able to take this data and turn it into advertising technology solutions, so that somebody like McDonald's would be able to understand those people who visit McDonald's quite a bit, during certain times of the day, that sort of thing, and then target them. So that's really what Xandr was. It was the opportunity for AT&T to connect the pieces of the Warner Brothers acquisition they did, the DirecTV acquisition that they did, and then their current AT&T assets that they have to be able to create advertising technology to target people. In a way, if you guys have seen the show on television, Social Dilemma on Netflix, that documentary, in a way, I do some similar things like within there in terms of understanding what people behaviors they have online, and then be able to target folks. One of the things that I try to do is, and it's very important for me, is we have to use our powers for good and not evil. And I try to make sure that we do things like that we're not trying to, for example, rig an election or overthrow a small foreign country. Instead, it's more about let's get you to change your toilet paper habits, things like that.
Thanks. Can you talk a little bit more about your educational background and kind of how you got into this sort of work?
Sure, no problem. So my educational background is a little bit probably different than a lot of folks. I didn't go to college right out of high school. I graduated high school, thought I was an 18-year-old kid, and I thought I was going to be able to, I thought I knew everything, right? I could do everything on my own. I ended up actually, as soon as I graduated high school, I moved from Washington State to the state of Iowa, lived there for a few years, and just kind of, to be honest with you, bounced around. I worked in restaurants. And I worked in private dining clubs, things like that, And to be honest with you, that's all I really knew how to do. I knew how to wait tables. I knew how to bartend, things like that. But I got to a point where I turned 21, and I realized that, what, I need to go to school. And this is not going to get me where I want to be, that sort of thing. So I came back to Washington State, and I made a deal with my parents to help me out with school, right? And what they told me was that they'd help me pay for college, but I needed to go to school, no playing around or anything like that, no 6 to 7 year plan in college, that sort of thing, but I needed to do it. So originally, because all I really knew was working in the hospitality and the restaurant industry. I originally was going to go to school to go into hotel and restaurant administration or hospitality. I took a year of culinary arts. And after that, I realized I'm not very good with a knife. If I keep doing this, I'll end up with 7 fingers because I'm going to chop off one of them or something like that. And it just wasn't really what I was looking for. I bounced around a little bit and at junior college before I decided to go to Washington State University. Originally, I was going to go to Washington State University to become a teacher. After about a half a year of going through those courses, I realized that's not really what I wanted to do. I decided then to go into advertising. From advertising, to be honest with you, I went to school in the 90s, in the mid to late 90s. Some of you guys may have heard of the show Melrose Place, which was a show on Fox that came after Beverly Hills 90210. And it was about people who worked in an advertising agency, and it looked glamorous. And to be honest with you, that's partly one of the reasons why I went into advertising, was because of what I saw on television. But I ended up going to Washington University for 4 years. I graduated with a degree in advertising. I didn't let all of my education, because I was going to become a teacher, go to waste. My minor's in history. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of your favorite things about your job?
I'd say that it's kind of interesting because I've made a little bit of a career shift within my world. After I graduated college, I worked at advertising agencies for about 12 to 15 years. And that was fantastic, to be honest with you. I loved working in agencies. It was one of those things where it felt like you're working with all the cool kids at times, that sort of thing. Very creative people, open-minded thinking, that sort of thing. You get a lot of privileges when you work at an advertising agency. And here's another thing too, you get taken out quite a bit, get schmoozed a lot. I was able to go to some awesome games, things like that, front row seats, at a courtside, things like that. It was fantastic. So I kind of, as a kid growing in your 20s, it was fantastic. I got old. I'm in my mid 40s now, and I got old, and I made a career shift, and I went into the advertising technology side of the fence. So I started off on the agency side. I went to the client side for a little bit, and then I worked. Now I'm working in the advertising technology side, or the publisher side of the business. Mm-hmm. What I like most about it is every day is different. We wear lots of hats. There's one thing that's really cool about this is, your job is to constantly sort of be curious about things and be passionate about what you're looking for. So what does that mean? That means that, it's not about your job just stops right there. It's like it's that, the innate passion or that innate curiosity that allows you just to keep going. Right. And that is so important. And that's something I love about my job is we're given we're empowered to go beyond just what our role is, which is fantastic. So, and then the last thing I'll say this, as I mentioned earlier, the show, the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, right? To be honest with you, we are in a time within the advertising world when it comes to privacy and things like that. The case about privacy, the case about what are we giving up to share with advertisers? What is that social contract that we have out there? Here's what I really enjoy about that too, is that I feel like I want to try to affect change in the industry, and it's not about just, sucking up as much data and trying to sell it to people, that sort of thing. There's ethics involved. There's a lot of things that my company is trying to do that is trying to make it better for everybody. So it's important for me to be a part of that.
That's awesome.
So,
what are some of the things you find the most challenging about your work?
So one of the things I said earlier, and what I enjoy the most about my day, is that every day is different. One of the things I find challenging about my job is that every day is different. It isn't one of those things where, Monday you're doing this, Tuesday you're doing that, that sort of thing. It's not a set schedule. I mean, Monday something could have happened in Detroit, Michigan, some sort of blow up in terms of ad technology, you got to fix that. And then the next day you're working on something else else that is, for example, Google, we're moving to a cookieless world. If you guys know cookies are basically how the digital world tracks you online, right? So within the next couple of years, the cookies are going to be gone. We're not going to have that ability. So I'll be putting out fires on one day, and the next day I'll be thinking about what's technology going to be looking like 2 years from now. Like, what are the tools that we're going to be using to be able to bridge the gaps in terms of the lost resources that we're going to have with us over those next 2 years. So things like that, I think is challenging. I mentioned as well, you know, the social dilemma. You know, there's at times, sometimes you struggle with the moral aspects of what we do. You know, there's you hear a lot of backlash when it comes to advertising technology and the invasiveness and privacy and things like that. I wholeheartedly agree with a lot of what they're saying out there, but I think what happens is you don't hear the full picture of what's going on. So there's a little bit, to be honest with you, like I said, I try to use my powers for good, not evil. And at the end of the day, I'm really I just want to get you to, you know, go and buy that Big Mac, or go and buy that different toilet paper, or, you know, if you're looking at cars, you know, choose the Ford Escape over the Toyota RAV4, you know, that sort of thing. So that's really what I'm trying to do. And yeah. Yeah.
Thanks. You talked a little bit already about how no day is really the same, but could you walk us through kind of what a typical day might look like for you?
Well, in the day of COVID, right, and we're currently in the age of COVID, so there's no such thing as a typical day. I don't go to the office anymore. I've been working from home, pretty much since February. But a typical day for me starts fairly early in the morning because I'm in Seattle. My team is basically, I have half my team in Texas and I have half my team in New York. So they're either 2 hours or 3 hours ahead of me. Those guys love to schedule 9:30, 10 o'clock meetings their time, which is usually 6:30 or 7 o'clock my time in the morning. It's pretty early. So I'll usually start the day with an early meeting just to talk about, our team. You know, one of the things that we're trying to do is, because we're all working remotely, for a matter of fact, this morning, we do a half an hour with my team, and it's just called coffee talk. It's kind of the same sort of thing. It's just hanging out at the water cooler and just talking about, you know, what's going on in your life, things like that. So it's really, to be honest with you, it's a half an hour catch up so that you feel connected with the rest of the folks. I'll go throughout the day, as I mentioned earlier, just, you know, putting out fires, I'll do a combination of putting out fires, building solutions for advertisers. So for example, here's something I'm working on right now. We're trying to understand the gaming audience a little bit better. We have an audience segment that is gaming, but it's everybody. It's the holistic gaming world, universe, if you will. What I'm working on right now is I'm working with our data scientists to be able to dive into that data, and let's start to piece out that audience a little bit more. Let's understand who's a PC gamer, who's a console gamer, and who's like a mobile or a casual gamer. And then from there, let's deep dive into those and understand a little bit more. Like once we have those audiences separate, you know, distinct and separate, let's understand a little bit more about them. So for example, then I work a lot with data scientists to be able to dive into that and be able to translate what advertisers or what the industry is looking for to the data scientists to know what to get. I work with engineers to take that data, the outputs, like the model logic that the data scientists come up with. And then what they'll do is I'll work with the engineers to be able to productionalize that. What that basically means is really, it's just taking that data, that metadata, and putting it into a system for a user to be able to pick up and then use themselves within an advertising campaign, that sort of thing. So I do a lot of technical work, and I'll say that's another thing that's a little bit tough in my job. I'm a marketing guy. I come from the advertising world. There is a totally different sort of language that data scientists use and engineers use. It's very technical. And at times it's very difficult to be able to like sort of, it's almost like we're speaking two different languages, to be honest with you. So to be able to sort of take real world requests or real world sort of features that people want to use and then translate that into a technical language that the engineers can build, that's a big part of my job as well. To be honest with you, those were the hardest things that I had in terms of learning my job. That was one of the hardest things to learn.
Thanks. What do you think that would make someone a good fit for this kind of work?
I'd say this, when it comes to advertising or just advertising in general, I think there's really three things that are super important for somebody who wants to get into that industry. The first is curiosity or a passion, right? So in regards, like not being satisfied with just the what of something, but the why behind the what. Like, why is this way? Or why is this, why do we have to look at television advertising this way, or that sort of thing? That sort of thing. That sort of curiosity and passion is very important. Second thing, attention to detail. I'll say this. I mean, this is something that is super important, and it was really hard for me to break this a little bit. But attention to detail is important. I work with budgets that are in the, tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. A decimal error on my part could be $1 million, that sort of thing. And it's things like that that's really important to be able to have that attention to detail when you're working with numbers, things like that. All that really does, if you're able to do that, it provides credibility for yourself. I'd say the last thing is this. It's bulldog-like tenacity. This is something, to be honest with you, it's going to help you, I think, in life, period. But don't give up. You know what I mean? Like this tenacity of, if somebody says no, go after it. If you truly are passionate about it or things like that, chase it, go after it, try, do it. That sort of thing. So just don't accept no. I think that's really important too within advertising. You're going to get a lot of people, when you do pitches with clients, that sort of thing. You're going to get a lot of, clients say, I don't know, I don't get it, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Don't just take that at face value, that sort of thing. If you're passionate about it, have some tenacity and see it through.
Thanks. If a student is thinking about this kind of work, is there anything that you would recommend that they do right now to continue to explore it, like volunteer work or classes or projects or part-time jobs or that sort of thing?
Yeah. I'll say this. I think it's amazing that kids nowadays have so many more opportunities than me when I was a kid growing up in the late 80s, 90s, that sort of thing. I mentioned earlier that, Melrose Place was a factor for me in getting my job in advertising, that sort of thing. There wasn't an internet that I could dive into, like today. So I'll say this, that there's a lot of opportunities nowadays for kids to explore more about what they want to do. If you want to get into advertising, I'd say this, there's a lot of industry pubs and resources that are out there, that you can dive into that give you a little bit more of an insider's look at the world, of that advertising world, whether it's the media side of the business, whether it's the creative side of the business. There's a lot of stuff like websites out there that can support you. I'll say this too. When watching television or you're surfing the internet, think about the advertisements that you see and think critically about them. Like, why are you getting this? That sort of thing. Like, why is it that you are getting an ad for, I don't know, fast food, like going to a fast food versus, for example, you're not seeing ads for like diapers, that sort of thing. Why is that? And that's, to be honest with you, that's sort of the technology behind advertising to be able to connect that message with the right audience. So I think it's always, if you look at advertising with a critical eye, that's something that you can always kind of, it's important to do, first of all. We're all trying to dupe you, but it's important because it just helps you out, right? And stuff. So having that critical eye behind advertising, ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thanks. And what kind of education or training do you think that a student should be thinking about down the road to help them succeed in this kind of work?
I'd say that there's really two things here, and one is project management skills.
Mhm.
That's something that, in general, as you get into the workforce, things like that, it's important to have project management skills, especially right now. I mean, we are in the middle of like sort of this working remotely and stuff. I work with folks that are from Texas and New York, that sort of thing. We're on different time zones. We're working on different things. We don't have a chance to just always be together. So those project management skills, and related to that, it's team building and teamwork, working within team skills. You cannot, it's incredibly hard to be an island, that sort of thing, and to try to do everything yourself. So those opportunities allow you to build your team building skills or your team working skills are vital for you. So, yeah.
Thanks. Anything else you would want to share with students about your work or how to get there?
No, I don't think so. Exactly. It's a long, strange trip. What it's been for me. So that's what it comes down to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you, Anna.